Hello and welcome to Hammer Time, a Hammer horror podcast, part of the Evolution of Horror Network. I'm Becky Darke, a film critic and Hammer fang girl. And I'm joined by my co-host, human encyclopedia of film and TV and Hammer superfan, Kevin Lyons. Hi, Kev.
Hi, fangirl. I like that.
Well, I did that very lame thing for a few weeks where I'd given myself a title, as we discussed at the time, as lame as giving yourself a nickname. And yes. Thank goodness the listeners have once again come to the rescue, because we received an email from a guy called John. He said, loving the pod. Becky and Kevin have grown into a proper indispensable double act, which is very nice.
I love you, John.
But Hammer devotee, surely Becky should have graduated to Hammer fang girl. So that's it. Now that's what I am. I've adopted it. I love it.
Inspired, John. I love it. It's fantastic. Well done. Can I be a super fang from next week? That would be great.
Oh my God! There you go.
Only for vampire episodes. So.
Deal. In this podcast, Kevin and I are watching and discussing every horror film in Hammer's back catalogue. And this week, we're locked in the attic to repent for our sins in Fanatic from 1965.
One of the most terrifying suspense thrillers this side of insanity. Die, my darling.
Our Hammer Time discussions are all spoilerific and we go into plot details and chat about the endings of the films. So if you want to watch Fanatic before you listen to this episode, you can buy or rent it on VOD from a couple of different places. It's quite easy to get hold of this one. So, Kev, Fanatic, I knew nothing about this film at all coming into it. No idea what to expect. And I didn't realise from the title, although I know we will come on to talk about the title,
yeah.
I didn't realise from the title Fanatic that this was going to be the first of our kind of what is often referred to as psycho-biddy or like hagsploitation films. And This is really the first one that we've seen that sort of falls into that sub genre. So it's an interesting one and I really enjoyed it. Can you tell us a bit about like how this one came about?
Well, as we've seen in the past, the psycho thrillers were doing really well for Hammer. They were doing really nicely. It was a nice change of pace from the gothic horrors. And in fact, I think I said at the end of the last episode that we're actually going to have about 3 weeks, including this one, where we don't do gothic at all.
Yeah.
Because they just went mad for the psycho thrillers. And that's understandable. I guess they were a little bit cheaper and easier to make.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Didn't need all those costumes and all the rest of it. But they were doing well, so they wanted more of the same, I think. This one's different to the others in two key reasons. Come to that in a second. But it is still the psycho and le diabolique effect in play here, but also more so with this one, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane from 1962.
Definitely.
Which had been the first of those. I don't like that term, the H word term. I don't know. Doesn't fit well with the old lady's gone mad genre.
Yeah.
And so that had been hugely popular. There have been a few sort of follow-ups to it, as it were, a few sort of knockoffs of it. And I think Hammer just thought, well, if they can do it, we can do it.
Yeah.
And they did. And they did it rather brilliantly. Not as brilliantly as they're about to do in a couple of weeks' time, it must be said. But this is a really good first start with that.
Definitely, yeah.
The two differences, of course, first of all, it's in colour. Mm-hmm. It's the first of the psycho thrillers in colour. I kind of miss the black and white a little bit in this. I like the moodiness of the black and white.
Yeah, I understand that. Although there is one sequence that we'll talk about later on, which, blimey, if you're going to do colour, then they really do it.
They really do it. So they make good use of the colour. There's a little bit of me still thinking, I kind of like these things to be in very stark black and white. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the other big difference, of course, that this is the first one not to be written by Jimmy Sangster.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about the writer later on, but he's an equally famous horror writer.
Yeah.
And this one, I think, has got much more of psycho about it than the others have. There are even key scenes which are kind of almost replicated. There's a scene in a cellar
Definitely.
Not a fruit cellar. It was a scene in a cellar. So the thought was there, wasn't it? It's a scene in a cellar where someone lashes out with their arm and swings a light about, and
That's it.
All the rest of it. And the way the villainess gets sort of restrained at the end is straight out of Psycho. So I think they're definitely looking at Psycho more than Le Diabolique in this.
Yeah,
one.
I agree with that for sure. But as you say, with this sort of very Hammer-esque palette kind of over the top of it.
Of course, absolutely. I mean, whoever, were making these films for Hammer, it didn't seem to matter who they were. And we'll talk about the director in a little while, but it didn't seem to matter who it was. There seemed to be something quintessentially Hammer about what resulted.
Yeah.
It didn't matter who was lighting it, who was designing it, whatever. It just came out and it looked and it felt like a Hammer film. And that's fine by me. I'm very happy with that.
Just something about the kind of DNA running through these
that's
films
right,
by this point that
exactly.
They almost can't help but feel like Hammer films, which, no bad thing, right?
I'm certainly not going to argue with that. No, not at all. I'm very happy with that indeed.
And we will come on to talk about the director, who I believe is Italian.
No, but we'll talk about that anyway. He's got an Italian name and it's very confusing, but he's not. He's Canadian, but we'll talk about him in a little more detail later on.
Well,
yeah.
The other reason I assumed, apart from his name, Silvio Narizano, is the other reason that I thought he might be Italian was because of the alternative title to this film, which sounds to me very giallo.
It does, doesn't it? Die, my darling, which was a line that's uttered in the film, and it was the American title. And I have an amusing story about that, about the star of the film not liking that title for reasons that will become obvious when I explain it. But I prefer Fanatic, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the sort of... the camp in me loves an exclamation mark, when you get 3 in die, my darling. I also, as you say, the title is sort of spoken as a line of dialogue in the film, and so I did my little Leonardo DiCaprio meme of just pointing at the screen when she said it. So I love all that stuff, but I have to say that especially when we meet our main antagonist, Mrs. Trefoil, in this, the title Fanatic couldn't be more apt, in my opinion.
She was born to play the lead in a role called Fanatic. This is Tallulah Bankhead. We have much to say about Tallulah Bankhead, bless her. But I mean, I prefer Fanatic mainly because it's like Psycho. It's a nice and easy one-word title, like Nightmare, like Paranoiac, like Hysteria, which we'll be looking at next.
Yeah,
I like those one-word titles, very stark.
Okay, so let's have a look at the plot of Fanatic. I have taken this from Letterboxd. It's short. It's a diminutive, very simple little explanation. A young woman is terrorised by her deceased fiancé's demented mother, who blames her for her son's death.
And there you are. That's it. That's the film in a nutshell. That's it. Thank you very much for listening to Hammer Time. Come back next week. No, that's it. You've got it. I mean, it's just, I mean, I don't know how many words that is, but it's one sentence, and it does actually neatly encapsulate exactly what's going on in this incredibly strange film.
It definitely does, yeah. So what do we both think of this one, Kev? How's Fanatic for you?
I do quite like this, I must admit. It has some faults. We'll talk about them a bit more as we go along. I'm not entirely sure that the humour and the horror sit quite comfortably together. It almost feels like they weren't quite sure what they were trying to do, make a comedy film or a horror film.
That's
and
interesting,
the two bits don't quite gel, but that's all right. It's more entertaining than not, and that's really all I want from a film. So I enjoyed a great deal. The cast, we'll talk about the cast. The cast is absolutely to die for in this one.
Yeah.
It's one of the best casts, I think, that Hammer have put together so far, excluding the big guns like Lee and Cushing and so on.
Sure.
This is a superb cast, full of people I absolutely love. So, of course, I'm going to enjoy the film to a degree. But, yeah, I think it's a good film. I think it's okay. It's not bad at all. It's not Scream of Fear or Taste of Fear or whatever you know it as. It's not Paranoiac. But it's a lot better than Maniac.
It is a lot better than Maniac.
Yeah.
I had a brilliant time with this one. I really did. Yeah. I got to the end of it and I sort of, closed the tab on my laptop and I think I said out loud, well, that was great.
Do you know, when it was looming, this one, I kept looking at the title and thinking, knowing Becky the way I do, she's going to love this one, isn't she? This is right up Becky's street. And I wasn't wrong, was I? So that's great.
You
news.
weren't.
That's
You absolutely called that one. It had everything that I sort of wanted from a sharp, entertaining little thriller. And we'll come on to talk about kind of where the horror of the Hammer horror comes out of Fanatic a little bit later. But I thought that it definitely tipped over into the horror a little bit more, which I really enjoyed. You're absolutely right about the cast and the performances. I mean, Tallulah Bankhead as Mrs. Trefoil is
great,
unbelievably good. But Stephanie Powers as Patricia is an absolute new fave of mine. I thought she was superb in this.
And she does the comedy better than most of the others do.
That's absolutely right.
The lovely bit with the rumbling stomach, which when you watch it, you'll wet yourself laughing. It is so funny. It's so clever.
It's so good. And all of the little kind of throwaway comments that she sort of says to herself.
Yes.
She'll sort of, leave a room and she'll have just had a confrontation with Mrs. Trefoil and she'll say something like, "Ugh, I only asked for a mirror," she's sort of narrating it for herself and for us, but in this really charming, entertaining way. And I just thought she carried it. I thought she was absolutely superb. And then there are, I totally understand what you mean about missing those kind of moodier, sort of aesthetics, I guess, of having the black and white for the thrillers. But as I said earlier, if you're going to do colour, this is the way to do it. And there are a couple of sequences when my jaw was on the floor at what I was looking at. I thought it was really, really good.
We'll talk about the photographer a bit later on, but this is a beautiful looking film.
Yeah, it is.
It is a stunning looking film. And indeed, it seems to be doing something that other directors elsewhere in Europe were doing without having probably seen what they were doing. There's a little cryptic thing that'll make you stick around for the rest of the episode now till we get to that point and I explain what I'm rambling on about.
So let's talk about the not Italian but Canadian Silvio Narizano, our director. So this is the first time that we've come across Silvio as a director of one of our Hammers.
It'll be the last time as well in this series because it's the only film he did for Hammer, strangely enough. He was born in Montreal. He's got this Italian name, but born in Montreal. And, he sort of started out in television, basically. And I think sometimes you can kind of detect that a little bit in Fanatic.
I agree.
Particularly in the first half hour or so, before the horror really kicks in.
Yeah.
There are scenes that feel like they're from a TV film. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, because I really like TV films. I've got quite a passion for them. But it does feel a little bit like he's making a TV film at some points. And, that's understandable. He'd been working for the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. He was working as an assistant, and some of the people he assisted while he was working there, Ted Kotcheff, Arthur Hiller, Norman Jewison, some of the biggest names that were going to eventually sort of, hit Hollywood and make really big, important films. So he had a good training there, I think.
Definitely, yeah.
Watching these guys, you can see when it had rubbed off. You can almost see him thinking through the film while he's making it. Some really clever choices of angles.
Oh, I love that.
And the pacing is really, really good as well. But he came to the UK at the recommendation of a fellow Canadian by the name of Sidney Newman. Now, I mention him here solely to crowbar in my obligatory mention of my beloved Doctor Who, because, yes, there it is. It was Sidney Newman who commissioned Doctor Who for the BBC.
Oh, wow.
So that was his first good idea. His second good idea was persuading Silvio Narizano to come over to Britain. So, yeah, well done, Sidney. We have a lot to thank you for. He went on to do, Silvio, he did a terrific 60s film. You must have seen this, I'm sort of sure. Georgie Girl in 1966?
No, I don't know it.
If you've not seen it, you will know the theme tune.
Oh, okay.
It's one of those incredible 60s earworms that you once heard, you just cannot... In fact, since last night when I was finishing off my notes and I'm doing this and sort of putting in Georgia Girl, it's in my head. And I can't get rid of it. And I don't mind because it's quite a catchy little pop tune. Go and see Georgia Girl. It's lovely. It's a really good, very typically mid-60s sort of social drama with a bit of comedy in it.
Oh, brill.
And it's a really, really lovely film. He directed that. He did, 1970 did an adaptation of Loot, the Joe Orton play, which was very well received, and a very strange Spanish horror film called Las Flores del Vicio, The Sky is Falling, in 1975. And I do wonder, watching this film, given the reputation that Tallulah Bankhead had, we will talk about this, she was a character. Given the reputation she had, it must have been a fairly nerve-wracking experience for him to be making what, in effect, was his feature film debut.
Yeah.
He'd done television, this was his first feature film, and there he is with old Hollywood royalty, who was a character. And they came to blows. We will talk about this later.
Oh, my God, amazing.
They came to blows on more than one occasion. Yeah, a lovely little story about a little falling out they had, which was terrific. But yeah, so fair play to him. He does a superb job here, I think.
I think so.
And it's such a shame that Hammer never got him back. I guess he was just so in demand, particularly after Georgie Girl became a big hit, that he could do what he wanted. And I guess he was sort of priced out of Hammer's reach at that point.
Interesting. Well, it's funny what you say about Fanatic feeling a little bit like a TV film at points, because Alan, our our male protagonist, but he's at the beginning of the film and then turns up to sort of rescue poor Patricia at the end.
Typical useless bloke, just when you need him, he's not bloody there.
I know. Although, to be fair, not to victim blame Patricia, but she does get herself into this ridiculous situation.
Oh, I've got a lot to say about Patricia. She's not the brightest of God's little sunbeams, is she, really?
So funny. There's another bit, one of her little asides at one point, and she sort of rolls her eyes and says, well, it is your own fault, or something like that. Yeah. It's so funny.
I love she's self-aware enough, but yeah.
Exactly. I love that both she and the movie sort of really acknowledge that up front. But Alan works for a TV company, doesn't he? So when we first meet them, they've just gotten engaged. She's just arrived. And in the country, because she's an American, and he's driving them to where they're going to be staying, and he says, I've just got to drop off some films on the way, and pulls up to Allied Television Limited.
That's right, yes.
With all of these cans of film under his arm, which I thought maybe that, interestingly, almost in a sort of slightly meta way, that is the portion of the film that does feel a bit TV.
It does, doesn't it? It does. It's really weird, isn't it? The bit where he actually turns up at the TV station, actually a local school nearby where they're filming the rest of it. That's the bit that actually does feel the most like a TV movie. And then you get some comedy business, don't you, with her trying to drive the car away as if it's an automatic.
That's
right.
A
manual. And he's shouting at her, it's manual, it's not automatic.
Use the clutch.
It's almost like one of those sort of domestic sitcom moments, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
Actually, what I should have started with, Kevin, is the incredible opening credit sequence.
Oh, God, yes. Half of which I can't watch. As I have said on many a podcast in the past, I am Muncer-phobic, which means that 6'6" me is mortally terrified by a 2-inch mouse. I will freeze on the spot. I will come over all lightheaded. I will be really quite unwell if I see a mouse. And there's a mouse in the opening titles, but there's a cat as well. So there's like a cat and mouse sort of thing, which is actually really clever.
It's
so
a
really
good.
Clever sequence. Yeah,
very stylishly done. It's extremely 60s.
Yeah.
Because I think the mouse is a completely black background.
Yep.
The mouse is red. I think the cat is green.
That's right. Yeah.
And the mouse is sort of running around in diagonals across the screen, and then along the bottom of the screen, and then blah 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 blah. And then now and again you'll see the cat sort of prowling, and then the mouse will sort of like get away, and then in the end the cat pops his little paw down on the mouse's tail. And it comes up. In fact, for me, I think I was watching the American version because it came up "Die, Die, My Darling."
Right, yes. Yep.
It was so beautifully, like, quintessentially 60s as an opening credits scene. And also, obviously, that kind of cat and mouse,
of course,
sort of narrative, I guess, of the film. I just loved it. I was like, I'm already in.
You could tell that the psychedelic era was just about to dawn, can't you? Because, they're already starting to do this weird psychedelic title sequence stuff. He's not going to make it into the body of the films yet, but it will. And you're saying about the cat and mouse, it's interesting because then as it goes along, who's the cat and who's the mouse?
Right.
Sort of obviously we think Mrs. Trefoil, the mad woman, she's obviously the cat, but is she? Because at the end, the tables are turned. I don't think we're giving anything away by that one. I think we know how this is going to end the minute it starts, really, don't we? But, it's a lovely title sequence. You're absolutely right to have mentioned it. Yeah.
The other thing to mention about Silvio Narizano before we move on is there were a couple of sequences in the film that, although we agree it very much feels like a Hammer film.
Yeah.
There was a couple of sequences, and one specifically that felt really ahead of its time.
Sure.
And actually quite unnerving in its horror. This is miles away from the sort of gothic of the Phantom or Dracula just sort of standing stock still on top of a flight of stairs and peering down at somebody.
Yeah.
Patricia has been locked in the attic. She gets away. She sort of she does a bit of a Peter Cushing and fashions a rope out of some sheets. And rather than shimmying down with a lot of grace, though, she falls through a conservatory ceiling. She's all cut up. Her sort of clothes are all cut. She's got blood on her. She's very dirty. She runs into the woods, and Harry, who is Mrs. Trefoil's kind of handyman bloke about the house, servant guy, pursues her into the woods. Now, Harry has already been demonstrated to us to be a horrendous sort of sexual predator, sadistic, nasty piece of work. And he pursues poor beaten up Patricia into the woods. And then you get this camera work that is really kind of handheld and feels very kind of in your face. It's right up in Patricia's face. It's jerking all over the place. She's running through the trees. Then it'll switch round and we'll look at Harry kind of coming after her. And I couldn't help but think it really reminded me of something like I Spit on Your Grave.
Yeah.
The way that it's shot and the way that it's lit and the way that she looks and the way that she's being pursued through the woods by this horrendous man.
Yeah.
As I had that thought, Kev, it cut to the next scene and she's in the water and he has gotten into a little sort of powerboat.
Right.
And is like going around her in the water. And I was like, holy shit. Like,
this is I Spit on Your Grave, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I also thought as well, when she's leaving the house, I was kind of reminded a little tiny bit of Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
Where they're trying to, is it Pam that tries to escape the house? She goes in and Leatherface jumps at her and she runs and she tries to get out of the house and he grabs her.
Yeah.
And there was just something about that scene. It all feels very sort of like a look forward to the 1970s horrors.
It really, really does. I just thought it was blatant. And again, like that, and as the very sort of 60s credits, and it really kind of almost feels like it's doing something not only new for the time, but it's also being quite prescient about what's coming, in sort of 10 or so years' time.
But I think if we look back at the sort of late 50s and early 60s Hammers, they were looking forward as well.
Oh, definitely.
There's things like Dracula, Curse of Frankenstein, Brides of Dracula. They were anticipating the Roger Corman films.
Yep.
The Edgar Allan Poe, Roger Corman films. So they were sort of breaking ground as well. I think we've just become so used to Hammer breaking ground that it comes as a shock when they do it in such a big way.
Yeah, that's fair.
We're sort of like, oh yeah, of course Hammer are being brilliant, because that's what Hammer did. And then they do it in a sort of very obvious way like this. And you think, oh, I'll sit up and take note now.
Yeah.
But yes, you're absolutely right. There is definitely a very forward-looking feel to it, as well as a kind of... It's a very tricky thing to capture, but he does it somehow to make it feel like a Hammer film, but make it feel like a Hammer film from next year.
Yeah, I love
if that. Makes
That's
sense.
So well
you know,
put.
We're not looking back at the Gothic horrors. We're looking forward to, you know, whatever's coming in the future.
Well, and I just really love it as well, because obviously with these thrillers, we do keep mentioning films like Psycho, like Lady Aberleek.
Yeah.
We've mentioned Whatever Happened to Baby Jane in relation to Fanatic. Yeah. And so I find it very satisfying to watch a film from a big established studio where they are taking influence from some of the best horror films that have ever been made.
Right, yeah.
And then you can recognise where they are also then breaking new ground, that future filmmakers will be looking back to these films to kind of draw influence. And I love that sort of, I don't know, that evolution, that kind of DNA, that sort of tumble down effect of all of these things that just work in horror films throughout the years.
If you look back at the films that we've done so far, and there's been a lot of them, is this film 25 or something? We've done a lot of films. Mm-hmm. You could, if you were being an uncharitable idiot, actually suggest that Hammer weren't that original, because they were adapting books, they were remaking things, they were adapting television programmes.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely true, they were. But what they did with those adaptations and remakes was quite extraordinary.
Yeah.
They weren't just slavishly remaking things or adapting things, and they weren't changing them out of all recognition. They were keeping the essence of what made the original stories so good, but bringing them screaming into the 1950s and 60s. Mm-hmm. You know, sort of freeing them from the 1930s and 40s Universal era, which, you know, I'm not bad-mouthing Universal. I love those films.
No, of course not.
But, you know, this was the 1950s. This was sort of post-war. This was post-nuclear bomb. This was the space age. And they were dragging these films into that modern era. And I think they're doing the exact same thing here. They're taking things from earlier and saying, no, this is the way we're going to do it. We're going to do it in a different way. We're going to be more progressive in the way that we do it. And that's, you know, a hallmark of Hammer. You'll see these all the way through, particularly when we get into the early 1970s, after we have our little stumble in 1970. Yeah. They're going to get really creative and inventive. And as I said before, you may not like everything they do from 1971 onwards, but you cannot deny that they weren't experimenting.
Right.
And they were very good at that, Hammer, very good at being experimental.
Yeah, and for me, certainly in this case, it really works. I loved it.
Yeah, it does.
Really loved
it does, yeah.
You mentioned there that Hammer have done a lot of sort of adaptations of books and things like that. And this is actually based on a 1961 novel.
It is.
Slightly confusingly called Nightmare.
Yeah.
so the Hammer thriller Nightmare is not based on the book Nightmare.
It's not. No.
But Fanatic is. And 1961, written by an author called Anne Blaisdell. But it's Richard Matheson who is adapting that novel into this screenplay. So let's talk a little bit about Richard Matheson, because you suggested earlier, Kev, that fine, we haven't got Jimmy Sangster here, but Richard Matheson is not a bad replacement.
He's not. Well, just to step back just 1 second to Anne Blaisdell. Anne Blaisdell didn't exist as such. She was actually the American crime novelist Elizabeth Linnington.
Okay.
She wrote under a whole variety of pseudonyms: Del Shannon, Leslie Egan, Egan O'Neill, Anne Blaisdell. I think this is the only book that she wrote under the Anne Blaisdell name. And she's been credited as being one of the first women writers to sort of specialise in police procedurals.
Interesting.
Where it wasn't, you know, sort of like everything seen from the point of view of the victim. It was actually about the cops trying to go through the case or working through it, which is the kind of crime story I like in a lot of ways. I like to see the procedure behind it all. So she was quite, you know, innovative in that sense. But yes, that's her. But yes, indeed, we have got Richard Matheson, who is... I'm not sure I need to tell anybody listening to an Evolution of Horror podcast who Richard Matheson is, really, should I? But yeah, Hammer had some form with Richard Matheson. Back in 1957, they were looking for something similar to Quatermass to adapt. And they commissioned him to write a script based on his novel, I Am Legend, which became The Omega Man, which became I Am Legend, all the rest about vampires after a nuclear war sort of thing, or a global war, not a nuclear war. And they gave it the new title, The Night Creatures, which without the would become the US title of Captain Clegg.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Well, the reason it ended up attached to Captain Clegg is they couldn't make the film. Anthony Hines, the producer, saw it as a good project for Hammer. It made sense. You know, you've got this story about hordes of vampires. It's been hailed as one of the sort of precursors of Night of the Living Dead. You know, so you've got this guy trapped on his own in a house with hordes of vampires outside.
Oh, wow.
If you've never read the book, I can hugely recommend it. It's extraordinary. Such a good book. And you can understand why Hammer looked at that and thought, well, we do vampires. Why don't we do hundreds of them? And they brought him over. Brought Richard Matheson over, set him up in a hotel room for 2 months. He had a lovely 2-month holiday in Britain, turned in a script. They sent it to the BBFC, who said straight away, absolutely bloody not. This is far too violent and nasty.
Spoil sports.
There's no way you're going to be able to make this. And the MPAA in America, the Motion Picture Association of America, who kind of the equivalent, handing out the ratings, they made it known that they were not too happy about the state of the script either. And so, unfortunately, it was abandoned. And they sold the property on to they had still in touch with their US distribution partner, Robert Lippert, at this point. Robert Lippert, in turn, went off to Rome with it, teamed up with Produzioni La Regina.
Lovely.
And he brought in the director Ubaldo Ragona to direct it as The Last Man on Earth in 1964 with Vincent Price.
Yeah.
So that's the film that Hammer was going to make. But in 1957 Britain, the censors were not going to have that. So poor old Richard Matheson, well, I say poor old Richard Matheson, he had a 2-month holiday, then went home with a cheque in his pocket. I'm sure he wasn't feeling that aggrieved, but, you know. But anyway, in the meantime, between then and writing Fanatic, he'd thrown in his lot with the aforementioned Roger Corman. He'd written The House of Usher in 1960, which starts a whole series of Poe adaptations. He did The Pit and the Pendulum, 1961, Tales of Terror a year later, The Raven a year after that, and the Comedy of Terrors in 1963. In between, in 1962, he also wrote the terrific Night of the Eagle, or Burn Witch Burn, based on Fritz Leiber's novel Conjure Wife. What a film that is. Oh, that is a gorgeous film. It's one of those films where I'm desperately sad that wasn't made by Hammer, so we can't talk about it. But it could be such a bloody good film. I really like that.
Maybe
film.
We could do a bonus episode about it one day.
We should. So the Hammers that weren't, you know. Yeah. But so he was a busy beaver around this time, and he's going to come back to Hammer in 1968. He'll adapt Dennis Wheatley's novel, The Devil Rides Out, and that'll be one of the company's very best films. And he's an absolute staple of genre film and television for many, many years, starting with, you know, sort of The Incredible Shrinking Man, which is scripted from his own story, The Shrinking Man, right through doing The Twilight Zone, doing all sorts of stuff. This was a man who knew how to write a horror script.
I mean, I feel like you are really missing the most important one, Kev.
Yeah.
Jaws 3D. Come on, credit where credit's due.
Oh, dear God. Because sometimes you just lose faith in people, don't you? You really do. All these weeks and months we've been working together, and I really don't know you at all, do I, Becky? Bloody hell. Jaws 3D? Of all of them, really?
Yes. Actually,
okay.
Do you know what? Yeah.
Okay, so he wasn't a genius all the time. Occasionally he had a day off, but yeah. There's a bloody good reason why I forgot Jaws 3D, and thank you for reminding me of it.
It just makes me laugh. I was going through his credits and I was like, oh my God, like Jewel, The Last Man on Earth, Pit and the Pendulum, House on Usher, The Devil Rides Out, The Raven, Burn Witch Burn, you know, all of these incredible films, now Fanatic, and then I was like,
Jaws
oh my God,
3D.
Look, Jaws 3D.
Every genius is allowed a day off. Come on, cut the man some slack. I mean, it's very difficult to forgive him for that monstrosity, but, you know, he's not the only reason why that film fails, to be honest.
I thank him. I thank him for Jaws 3D.
Oh, dear God, Lord preserve us.
So obviously we're talking about him very much in the sort of context of his work in horror.
Yeah.
And we suggested earlier that we think that Fanatic probably is more horror than thriller.
Yes.
Well, I certainly think so, anyway.
I think so.
So where does the horror come from in Fanatic? Because I found certain moments of it really quite stressful.
Oh, very disturbing and tense, a lot of it, isn't it? Yeah, yeah.
Dark.
Like I said, there's this kind of disconnect for me between the humour and the horror. And there's a lot of humour in the first act, but once it gets going, it really kicks off. You can add it to a sort of periodic string of films about people being imprisoned and punished for perceived wrongdoings.
Yeah.
You've got the same year's The Collector from William Wyler, for example, which is a terrific film. A bit later on, you get House of Whipcord, the Pete Walker film from 1974. And very recently, as we're recording this, I think it may still be out there in cinemas, we've got Good Boy. Not the one about the dog. This is the one with Stephen Graham and Andrea Riseborough, sort of
yes,
abducting a young offender from the streets and teaching him the error of his ways.
Also, I think it's got alternative title of Heel, I think.
Heel was its original title, then it became Good Boy. Now I think it's called The Good Boy because Good Boy
Because there's at least two other films that have been out over the last couple of years called Good Boy, yeah.
Exactly. So I think it's now called The Good Boy, but I haven't actually seen it yet, but it does look pretty good, actually, I must say. And I do like Stephen Graham and Andrea Riseborough, so of course I'm going to watch it eventually. It's terrific.
It's going to be difficult to go wrong with that cast,
It is. But these are all films about, sort of people being imprisoned in places because their captors have perceived them to do something wrong, so they need to be punished. They need to be corrected. In some ways, Mrs. Trefoil goes even further than some of these. I mean, she's completely unhinged, isn't she? She's dangerously unhinged. But, yeah, I sort of like that. I like that sort of captivity thing. It's almost like, I hate to mention it, because it's not a genre I particularly enjoy. It's almost like the beginnings of torture porn.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, but it's not like torture porn. It is not a torture porn film.
No, but I know what you mean.
It's an outlier.
There is that focus in Fanatic, and I wonder if this is where it does maybe knock up against the humour a little bit, because it really does sort of go from very light and fluffy in places to being really quite dark, and it very much sort of, it lingers quite a lot on the sort of suffering of Patricia, because so she turns up to Mrs. Trefoil's house. She's trying to do something good, bless her. She used to be engaged to this guy called Stephen. Mrs. Trefoil is his mother, and she is extremely devout to a fanatical sort of point in her religion. And this is 1965. Patricia, played by Stephanie Powers, turns up. She's this beautiful, happy-go-lucky thing. She's an American. She's obviously sort of lived a life. She's very beautiful, and her hair is immaculate. She loves sort of putting on her lipstick and wearing these sort of bright colours and stuff. Yeah. This could not be more anathema to Mrs. Trefoil, who is this sort of almost fundamentalist.
Oh yes, she is
extremely pious.
Yeah.
She sort of lives this like self-imposed kind of very simple lifestyle where she's a vegetarian. She only eats things that they have sort of made themselves out of oatmeal and things like that. She holds her own religious services in her home, which are attended by her kind of family members / servants.
And if I can say at this point, there is one of the funniest parts of the film, which does work for me, is when she's giving this incredibly tedious Bible reading. And it's dragging on for so long that her tiny audience is having trouble staying conscious throughout. There's a lovely little aside during it. My foot fell asleep.
Yes!
Yeah, and that is really quite a funny moment. That's where you get this stomach rumbling, where Stephanie Powers' stomach starts to rumble and she's kind of looking a bit nervous. Could people hear that over her tedious sermonising, which is just really, that is a very funny scene, I have to say.
Well, it is funny, but it also reminded me of something extremely dark, because what the camera does, which is very clever, is she's sort of been asked to come down for the service at 11 a.m. or something. And then, Mrs. Trefoil starts this sermon, and the camera sort of goes up over her head to the sort of windows behind her.
Yes.
And then it literally gets dark behind her, and then the camera sort of pulls back, and you see Patricia and the others at the service sort of, dozing off or stomachs rumbling and that kind of thing. And you realise in that very simple way that, oh my God, she's literally been going on all day, from late morning to it has gotten dark. And what it reminded me of is you hear about, because I'm obsessed with cults.
Right, yeah.
And you hear about sort of false prophets like, say, David Koresh of the Branch Davidians, who part of their way of controlling their congregation is to literally just have them in a room all day.
Yes, that's right.
It's like maddening, right? And they can't eat, so they're hungry. They have no kind of fresh air. They can't get up and stretch their legs. And it is this real kind of perfidious control over these people sort of in your cult or in your congregation or whatever you want to call it. And so, it's a lovely little moment in the film. But I thought that, again, it was being really observant about what kind of religious leaders, and especially the ones who take it to a really fanatical point, what they can kind of do to the people who sort of fall in line.
I think it's an early example of quite how dangerous Mrs. Trefoil's going to turn out to be.
100%.
She's been a bit eccentric up until this point. Not lovably eccentric. I do like eccentric people. She's been worrying from the start.
Yes.
She's been a cause for concern, but she just feels a little bit eccentric, a bit harmless maybe. As soon as we see that, and we get this idea that she is controlling them in this very sort of quite subtle way, that, she's not sort of like chaining them up and saying, you will do as you are told and all the rest of it. She just keeps going. Mm-hmm. It's almost a very British thing, although Patricia obviously is an American, that we won't walk out because we're thinking, oh no, that would be rude to do that, wouldn't it?
Well, again, that's calling forward to films that we get nowadays, like Speak No Evil, right?
Yeah.
This idea of, because that's not British people in that. I know it wasn't a remake, but in the original. But this idea of kind of social anxiety.
That's right,
and social kind of...
awkwardness,
yes, exactly. And not wanting to appear rude. And so you therefore sort of find yourself in these situations that you're not entirely sure how you got yourself here, but how the hell am I going to get myself out of it?
Exactly. And then you get that when Patricia's stomach rumbles.
Yeah.
And she kind of just looks nervously around her. She's not sort of thinking, oh, I need to get some food. She's thinking, what do I do?
Exactly.
I can't walk out. I can't go and get anything to eat because she's still talking. I'm just sort of trapped in here. And it's a funny moment, but it has got that undercurrent of... Actually, we're beginning to realise just how completely insane Mrs. Trefoil actually is. I mean, she's completely... There's a lovely moment when Patricia first realises just how insane Mrs. Trefoil is. She laughs because it's so absurd. These dotty old ladies, completely psychotic. She does what we all do. We laugh at it because it's like, I don't know what else to do in this moment,
That's it. Yeah, I think it's a laugh of... it's a sort of mixed laugh of genuine amusement and sort of incredulity.
Yeah.
And also like maybe a little bit of panic.
A little bit of fear. Yeah. It's like, oh my God, what have I got myself into here?
Yeah.
And the horror of that is that she hasn't got herself into it in a way that was terribly obvious. I mean, I said earlier that Patricia is not the sharpest tool in the shed. And I do sort of question whether women in 1965 often felt the need to go and see their dead fiancé's husband.
I know.
Expressly to tell them I wasn't actually going to marry him anyway.
Well, especially when we find out towards the end that Stephen actually took his own life.
That's right, yeah.
And that appears to have been because he's got this nutcase for
a mother. Yeah. I mean,
so why would you turn up to the house knowing that?
I mean, to be honest, I'm amazed she's in the same country as her. I'd have had Alan fly over to America, to be honest. He'd have got work on television over there, and there's an entirely different continent, because obviously she's nuts. But it does feel very odd that she's turned up at this place to speak to this woman she has no real need to speak to anymore.
No.
Who you're about to tell her something that she doesn't want to hear, and you must have known she was a little bit off a rocker to start with. But so she kind of walks into it in a way, but she walks into it as an innocent.
She does. I do feel like her, as misjudged and misguided as I think her decision making is, it does seem that it comes from, like, her heart's in the right place, you know?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. She's not going to tell Mrs. Trefoil that she was never going to marry Stephen just to hurt her.
No.
She was doing it because she felt like she owed her that.
Yeah.
Personally, I would have thought, well, she can get through the rest of her life without knowing that, frankly. She would have been all right. I'll just go and have a happy time with Alan, but, you know.
But she sort of keeps she's obsessed with this idea that Patricia was Stephen's beloved, and
that's
you
right.
know, it's she keeps sort of saying things like, "Oh, it's so wonderful that you and Stephen remained virgins," and you know, it means that you are sort of unsullied in the eyes of the Almighty, and so when you die and you meet Stephen in God's embrace, poor Patricia's like, "What the fuck?"
One of the creepiest moments of the whole film is they're in mid-conversation, sort of like she's showing her to the bedroom, I think, and they're in mid-conversation, and suddenly Mrs. Trefoil says, "You are a virgin, aren't you?" And the look up, I mean, you know, sort of Stanley Powers plays this brilliantly, that look of like she's been slapped in the face. Because, how dare you ask me a question like that? What is that to you? Yeah. And like you say, she's absolutely convinced that Stephen is eternally married to this woman.
Yes.
And she's already hinted at this earlier, because she's got this wonderfully dismissive line, hasn't she, about the local vicar being an evil man. And it turns out he's an evil man simply because he married again.
Yeah, and
after his wife died. You know?
After she died, exactly. So it's not like, you know, divorce and all of that kind of thing. It's like,
exactly.
And Patricia's so good. Stephanie Powers is so good in that moment. She says, there isn't a church, there isn't a religion on earth, I think.
Yeah.
There isn't a church, you know, on earth that would think it's a sin for somebody to remarry after their partner has died. And Mrs. Trefoil is just mortified by this. She's like, what? You know?
She's as offended by that as Patricia is by the "you are a virgin, aren't you" question. Yeah. They're both equally offended by these questions. You can understand Patricia's anger at being asked that question. It's impossible to get inside Mrs. Trefoil's head. Why is she so annoyed at that statement? It's just such a common sense statement. Live and let live. Let the guy go off and be married and be happy and all the rest of it. But no, because, you know, my God tells me that, you know, I mean, her God hasn't told her anything. She's completely misinterpreting every tenet of Christianity throughout the film. And that's important to notice, I think. Important to realise that she's not...
Yeah.
This is not sort of a film attacking Christianity or any other religion.
Absolutely not.
She's made up her own religion.
It's the fanaticism of Mrs. Trefoil that is being taken apart.
Exactly. And it's kind of, in a way, it's almost tragic.
Yeah.
Because this mania that she's built up, this kind of perverted religion that she's created in her head, is all born from her mental illness.
Yeah, because we know from other things that she is genuinely unwell.
Yeah.
She talks to Stephen. She sort of almost goes into these trances.
Yeah.
And will either just sort of go off sort of a bit sort of... blank-eyed, you know, sort of staring off into the distance, and either Anna, her sort of housemaid, or Patricia will sort of just lightly touch her on the shoulder and she'll sort of come to. But at other points, she is literally like speaking to the heavens, to Stephen, to her dead son, or speaking through the door of his old bedroom, which is so creepy.
It's simultaneously creepy and heartbreaking, isn't it?
Yeah,
you are creeped out by it, but at the same time, you're thinking, you poor old bat, you just needed a bit of help, didn't you? You just needed someone to talk to and get you through this. And I don't think the death of Stephen drove her to this. I think it was always there because she drove Stephen to his death.
Exactly. But it's definitely
made it
progressed
worse.
Things.
Yeah, it's made it worse. And in a way, she is that sort of typical sort of character that you simultaneously fear and hate. And at the same time, I've mentioned this line before, haven't I, in an episode, a line from Manhunter, that brilliant serial killer for the first Hannibal Lecter film, where the pursuing FBI agent says, you know, as a child, my heart bleeds for him. As an adult, I want to blow the sick fuck out of his socks. And you can have that dichotomy, that sort of... It's kind of like, it's really difficult that you can sympathise with someone who's so monstrous, but at the same time completely hate them
for what she's doing to Patricia. You know, I mean, it is horrendous. And as I was saying earlier, you know, the film really does, in that sort of second portion, once Mrs. Trefoil has figured out that Patricia isn't a virgin and wasn't going to marry Stephen, and she's actually got another bloke and all of that, and is basically sort of keeps her captive and starves her, and, you know, is she becomes injured. There's an attack, and she's sort of doesn't give her any care for this injury in her shoulder. She's being bound and gagged, and I mean, it's horrendous. And it's that you hate her for, is what she's doing to Patricia, which is really, really awful. But yeah, we do know that there's obviously something at the root of all of this. Her violence, her fanaticism, that I think has been kind of exacerbated by the death of her son.
Oh yeah. I think before she was a little bit out of control. She was controlling,
exactly,
trying to control Stephen. As soon as Stephen goes, she snaps completely.
I think that's it. Yeah,
and that's when she becomes the fanatic of the title. Yeah, that, you know, up till then she'd just been annoying but harmless to most people around her, not to Stephen, but you know, relatively. You'd kind of like, she'd be the gossip of the village, you know, they just like all that crazy woman.
Yes.
As soon as Stephen dies, she becomes the mad serial killing lunatic, you know. And it's interesting as well, I think, I've literally just thought of this, that we were touching on that whole thing about her questioning Patricia's virginity. Now, nowadays, I mean, that would be an appalling thing to say to anybody at any stage of the human evolution. You are a virgin, aren't you? That's just an appalling thing to say. But the very fact that they mention it in 1965 is still going to seem like quite a progressive and challenging idea for a lot of people, I think. You know, we were making inroads in the 1960s. By the mid-60s, we were getting a lot better. The younger generation in particular were much freer about talking about sex and having sex and being very open about it.
Yeah.
I think... The older generation, their parents, if they'd been along to see this film, they'd have been like, "Oh no, we don't want to hear about that." You know, so we're still at that little cusp, weren't we? That little sort of little moment in the development of British society where it was still a little bit naughty, and the fact that a girl wasn't a virgin. It was just sort of the double standard, the idiotic double standards. The bloke, all right, he's not a virgin. Oh, hey, he's a lad, you know. The girl, oh no, that's horrific. How do you think the guys didn't become virgins?
Right.
How do you think that works? But, you know, that was where we were. And, you know, to some degree, I think we still are in some parts of British society. But, you know, I think the fact that they are talking about, you know, openly questioning, are you a virgin? And she's sort of saying, no, I'm not. You know, I'm having a very happy and healthy sex life, thank you very much. That would have shocked a great deal of the audience, you know, the pearl-clutching part of the audience. So Hammer being a little bit progressive again, just pushing back at the envelope a little bit.
Yeah, I love that. Right, come on, Kevin. Let's talk about Tallulah Bankhead.
Tallulah Bankhead. She is, we've mentioned this, she's terrific in this, isn't she?
Incredible.
Incredible. The rest of the cast are brilliant, but the whole film revolves around Tallulah Bankhead.
Yep.
I think if it had been anybody else, this film wouldn't have been quite as enjoyable. I think it would have been good, but I think she boosts it to a whole other level.
Oh, she's so good.
And you'll find people accusing her of being over the top in this, and yes, there are moments where she goes on a scenery-chewing rampage, but then at others, she's completely restrained. It's more scary when she's being or trying to be reasonable.
Yeah.
That's what I find it really creepy. You know, when she's doing the gibbering, wild-eyed stuff with the gun and everything, it's like, okay, movie villain. But it's when she's genuinely believing this nonsense that she's made up in her head. That's when she's at her most terrifying.
Absolutely.
I think.
Completely agree with that.
And astonishingly, I have to tell you, this was Bankhead's first big screen role since 1953.
Oh my God.
I know. She had, she'd been concentrating on her stage work, but she also had this reputation.
And also, let's not forget that there is certainly that period in an actress's life when they are deemed too old to be the ingenue of the love interest.
Yeah.
And so then you need to wait for them to get old enough to start playing the hag.
That's right, exactly. But she was her own worst enemy because she developed quite a few addictions, shall we say. Right. She hit the bottle big time. She was using drugs. Okay. She was allegedly at one point doing 120 cigarettes a day.
Good Lord.
How did she live as long as she did? I don't know. It's extraordinary. And she became very, very difficult to work with, by all accounts. People, I think, just didn't really want to work with her. She'd done a voice in an animated film in 1966 later on, but this was kind of her last on-screen appearance. Right. In a film, because I just think she became too difficult to work with. On set, yeah. There's a story, I think it was the makeup guy. No, it wasn't. It was one of the assistant directors was assigned to her on the set of Fanatic to look after her, make sure she got to the set okay. And she had a bit of a thing about just wandering about naked. Oh my God. She'd just take her clothes off and walk around. She was very open in ways that scandalised Hollywood about her promiscuity. She liked men and women, and she liked a lot of them. Come on, Tallulah. Yes. Come on, Tallulah. Yeah, get in there, girl. But don't, this was a different time. Don't go around telling people this. It's not going to help you. But there was one day, apparently, this poor assistant director went to get her from the set, walked into a dressing room, and she's stark naked. And he was like, oh, I'm really sorry, really sorry. And she said, oh, don't be silly. Now at least you know I'm a natural blonde. Oh my so she had a hell of a sense of humour, but I don't think she had endeared herself to filmmakers too much. No. There's a wonderful... I mentioned earlier some great stories about her on the set of this film. Apparently she walked off the set 3 times, just having temper tantrums about one thing or another. My favourite one was she was sitting in a wicker chair and she was wearing glasses, holding a gun in one hand and a Bible in the other. And she was quite short and her little legs weren't reaching the ground properly on this chair. And she was not happy. She didn't like having to wear glasses and use these props and all the rest of it. And she sort of really complained quite bitterly. And Narizano reportedly screamed at her, "Give me the fucking glasses and I'll show you how to do it." To which she replied, and I love this, "Don't you ever use that word glasses to me again." Which I just a terrific style. Whether it's true, whether it's apocryphal, I don't know, but it sort of ties in with what we know about Tallulah Bankhead, that she was this incredible free spirit who did what she wanted to do, and to hell with what it was doing to her career, frankly. I don't think she cared that much, And when the title was changed for America to Die, Die, My Darling, she was livid. Oh. Absolutely livid, because she had a kind of a trademark in her film, that darling, quite a sort of camp darling. And she thought that they were taking the mickey out of her a bit by changing that. And when they asked her to go and do the publicity in the States, she reportedly said, "I'd rather be dead than get out there and say, 'Hello, darlings.'" So she was... A character is the right word. To say the least, by the sounds of it. And there's poor old Silvio Naranzano making his first feature film in a foreign country with a crew that kind of knew each other from other films but didn't know him, and then he's got to deal with this. I mean, complete madness. But
with a woman who's flashing her bits at people without their consent.
And this tied in as well. This is another nice little story. She's got a kind of aversion to the colour red.
Yes.
Throughout the film.
Yes.
And she was famous for having this bright red lipstick when she was at the height of her career. And in fact, she'd worn it so often and so heavily that it had permanently stained her lips.
Oh my God, is this why they've got that, like, kind of pale makeup over her mouth?
Yeah, because they had to try and tone down the fact that her lips were still very sort of scarlet red, and it just didn't suit the character. But it was
That is hilarious.
Isn't that brilliant? It was just so sort of ingrained into her skin at that time, on her lips, that she was permanently sort of walking around with these bright red lips, apparently. So,
well, saves you a fortune in new lipstick, I suppose.
It does, but it costs Hammer a little bit to cover it up.
Well, yeah, exactly, having to undo it. That's really interesting, because I was... you get a lot of quite intense kind of close-ups, because she's a very... being a fanatic, she's very sort of... I don't know, she rants a lot, and there's a lot of sort of sweat on her face at times. And so you get these tight close-ups, and you can see that it looks like they've kind of put concealer or something over her lips.
Yes.
And I thought it was just, I don't know, like a kind of stylistic choice to show that, I don't know, she was pale and kind of, you know, a bit housebound and a bit, you know, sort of mad and highly strung or whatever. But it was noticeable. But that is an incredible piece of fact, piece of trivia. I love that.
So Roy Ashton, you know, who we know of old for his special effects makeup, him and his assistant Richard Mills were doing the ordinary makeup, but then having to apply this kind of whatever it was they were doing, like sort of paler lipstick or something to try and tone her down a little bit. But
amazing.
Look, for all her faults and quirks, I can't take away the fact that she did a terrific job in this film.
Oh, she's incredible.
She is so good in this film.
It's so good. And it's interesting as well, just to round up talking about Tallulah, but in the film, Mrs. Trefoil used to be an actress.
That's right. Yeah.
So in her youth, and she has these old pictures in a sort of photo album of her looking very Hollywood glam.
Yeah.
And Patricia sort of sees them and she says, "Oh my goodness, you know, you were so beautiful. You know, were you in the theatre or something like that?" She's asking her about her sort of previous life. And Mrs. Trefoil is absolutely sort of mortified about this old life that she used to have, and says that her very religious husband almost sort of came along and saved her from this life of sin of being an actress. And then that sort of leads on to two moments later in the film where she's really unraveling. One is where she goes into her wardrobe, finds a bottle of booze. So obviously she lives very simply, being this very pious religious woman. But so she doesn't drink, but she sort of knocks back some of this booze straight from the bottle. Then she's got a little hand mirror in there as well, this sort of little secret mirror that she keeps. And then she puts on this lipstick and sort of then looks at herself. She's got these, and then she does it in classic, like, mad old woman style, where let's just say she's not exactly colouring within the lines. And then she sort of smears it off of her face.
That's right.
And again, I'm thinking like, oh my God, it's The Substance. Oh my God, it's Wild at Heart. You know, these women with their lipsticks.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back for a second to those photographs of her in the basement, they're obviously their publicity shots of Tallulah Bankhead from when she was, you know, Hollywood royalty.
I thought she must have been, because she's got this entire kind of, it's almost like she's taken all of the colour from her life.
Sure.
And literally pushed it down.
Yes, buried
because you go down into the cellar, and it's all of her old costumes, all of these beautiful sort of I don't know, like feather boas and photos and awards and stuff all down there. And I loved that as a sort of visual representation of her literally pushing it all down and burying it.
Yeah. And I have to say, those photographs that they had of her, it's a lovely touch, isn't it, to have those there?
Yeah.
That prompted another walkout.
No, what? Why?
She thought the Hammer were intruding on her privacy by using old photographs of her, so she stormed off the set. I mean, bless her, she's brilliant, but my God, she was... Yeah, she's not quite Mrs. Trefoil levels of mad.
High maintenance.
She was high maintenance. She was a highly strung woman. So, bless her. Her performance is amazing. That's all that really matters. This is just sort of, behind the scenes tittle tattle, really. But I think it's quite funny. I think it's quite amusing. So,
So, elsewhere in the cast, we've already spoken a bit about Stephanie Powers as Patricia. And who
apparently Tallulah didn't like.
Of course not. I mean...
She's very frosty. They became really good friends later on, but during the production of the film, she was really frosty with her. Didn't want to talk to her, didn't want to have anything to do with her, didn't like her. Of course she didn't. She was the glamorous young lead.
And she is glamorous. I mean, she's beautiful in this.
Oh,
and she really... we talk about our sort of... I know that we're not quite in the age of Hammer glamour yet, but we often talk about how beautiful our leading ladies are, which is often accentuated by excellent hair and makeup, beautiful costuming. But obviously it's very important that Patricia as a character is this sort of beautiful, modern, free-spirited young woman, because you need that for her to be such a polar opposite to Mrs. Trefoil.
Of course.
And I just think that Stephanie Powers plays it so beautifully. All these moments of she sort of gets frustrated because there isn't a mirror when she's told to take her lipstick off for dinner and all of this kind of thing. I just think she does such a good job, with those lovely sort of comedy moments that we've already talked about.
Yes.
Then when she is on the receiving end of this real kind of brutality, also really sold that. So I just thought she was an all-rounder in this. I thought she was brilliant.
She's terrific. Absolutely terrific. Again, I cannot fault her performance in this. And if there was friction between her and Tallulah, then it worked. It works for both of them as part of their performances. So, I don't like to see people, having conflict with each other, but if it works, it works,
Absolutely. Peter Vaughan is a very recognisable face.
One of my favourites. Genial Harry Grout, the Lord of Slade Prison in Porridge. That's how I will always remember Peter Vaughan. He's just grouty. He was just, I loved him. He played a very superficially very similar character to the one he's playing here, or will do, rather, in Jose Larraz's Symptoms in 1974, that slightly sinister groundskeeper. Mm-hmm. Which is a terrific film if you haven't seen it. It stars Angela Pleasance, who, as we record this, sadly died a short time ago. Really, really good psychological thriller. Again, about a woman breaking down, basically, sort of losing her grasp. Go and find it. It's a terrific film. It's really good.
Great. Okay, we'll do.
And Peter Vaughan, what a career he had. I mean, he goes from this and ends up eventually as Master Aemon in Game of Thrones, which is the last role. And of course, the other thing that I know him best for myself, apart from being Harry Grout, was playing Paxton in the Ghost Story for Christmas episode, A Warning to the Curious.
Of course.
No digging here. But no, he ignores that and he gets his comeuppance, and he's so good in that. I love it. Absolutely love it.
So he's got quite a sort of not pedigree, but he's got quite a sort of track record, I suppose, actually, in genre stuff, doesn't he?
Straw Dogs, Time Bandits, Brazil.
Yeah.
He gets around, that guy. And he's one of those guys that anywhere he turns up, I immediately settle into my seat a little bit and think, good. Yeah. Excellent. Here comes Peter Vaughan. It's going to be okay.
And I tell
Doesn't matter how crap the rest of the film is, I just love this guy.
He is fucking terrifying in this.
He is.
He's not even the main baddie, but he is so sinister.
He is. Yeah, and I kind of always think of him as a little bit like Donald Pleasance in the fact that he kind of looks fairly genial, Harry Grout. He looks fairly sort of but he's always playing these sort of monstrous characters.
Yeah.
I mean, Harry Grout in a sitcom shown at sort of 7:30 or whatever it was on a weekday night at the BBC, he's a tough guy. He hurts people.
Yeah.
You know, he breaks arms and legs during the course of that sitcom. You know, they wouldn't do that these days, I don't think, sadly. But yeah, so he's always playing these sort of hard man characters. And yet, by all accounts, he was an absolute pussycat. He was a really lovely guy who was just like, yeah, these are the cards that I've been dealt. I will play them the best way I possibly can. So he's brilliant.
He's more scary almost than Mrs. Trefoil because Mrs. Trefoil's sort of violence and kind of control over other people comes from obviously a place of mental ill health and also this religious fanaticism. She's almost one of these baddies of she doesn't really know what she's doing. Like she does, but it's from this place of kind of it being very sort of misjudged and she's confused and all of that kind of thing. Yeah. Whereas Harry, Peter Vaughan as Harry, is just a nasty piece of work. And everything that he does in the film that is bad and violent and sexually aggressive, etc., is calculated and seems to come from, you know, a real place of just being a not very nice person. And I found that almost even more scary than Mrs. Trefoil.
He knows he's horrible and he loves it.
So right.
Whereas Mrs. Trefoil, I don't think she really has any control over her horrible side. It's kind of consuming her, whereas I think Harry sort of revels in his horrible side.
Exactly that, yeah.
It's his personality and he wants to be like that because he can be like that. And he said, yeah, he's a horrible character, but he is played by Peter Vaughan. So you kind of, when you first see him, you are thinking, he can't be all bad, can he?
And then it turns out,
lovely.
Yes, he can.
Yeah. Well, no, he's not all that bad. He's worse, basically. Yeah.
And his poor, long-suffering wife, Anna, played by Eutha Joyce.
Eutha Joyce. She made a bit of a speciality of playing these hard-done-by housewife types, didn't she? I mean, my generation knows her best as Mildred from Man About the House and George and Mildred, who was this sort of sexually frustrated landlady who got this useless husband. And she was always lusting after the young men that stayed in the house because she was a very vibrant middle-aged woman. And George was just hopeless, just useless. He didn't care. He wasn't interested at all. And she was so funny. I used to love those shows. They're absolutely terrific. But she was a very versatile actress. She was very prolific as well. She made a screen debut in a wonderful film I want to recommend. It's a Joan Littlewood film. The only film Joan Littlewood, the actor and acting coach, actually directed, called Sparrows Can't Sing in 1963. Barbara Windsor was the star of that. Very young Barbara Windsor. It's kind of slice of life of East End living in the early 60s. Terrific film. Really, really good. Eutha Joyce is one of her friends. It's like an ensemble cast, really, of people that came out of Joan Littlewood's acting school.
Right.
And it's a brilliant little film. If you have any interest in what Britain was like in the early 60s, this is probably as good a representation of what the East End of London probably did look like in 1963. Really good film. It's dark at times, but it's also very funny. It's very moving. Go and watch it. It's not a horror film in the slightest bit, but honestly, go and watch it, guys. You're going to absolutely love that one. She's terrific in that.
Fantastic. I'm absolutely going to seek that out. I've just been looking it up on Letterboxd and it looks really good.
It's brilliant. I love it. I don't think you'll be disappointed.
Amazing. I think that Eutha Joyce does something very special in this film where she is almost kind of a victim herself in that.
Oh, yes.
She is having to kind of get on board with the violence against Patricia, but she knows that she doesn't really have a choice, because if she doesn't get on board and doesn't help sort of restrain her, etc., that she'll get away, the police will be called, Anna will be arrested as an accomplice potentially, but Harry will definitely get in trouble. Her whole sort of world and life will just basically sort of crumble around her ears. And so she's very much a character stuck between kind of a rock and a hard place. And what I really love about Eutha Joyce's performance is even when she's doing something and you're going, oh, Anna, no, like, don't, stop sort of, because her and Patricia get into a couple of like pretty hardcore like girl fights on the floor, you know. They're really tumbling around and pulling each other's hair and like hitting each other and throwing each other across the room. It's very physical from both of them. And you're thinking like, Anna, you know, you're better than this, but she also plays it so beautifully where she, unlike Harry, isn't relishing any of it at all. She's literally just doing what she has to do.
She's the polar opposite of Harry, really, isn't she? That where Harry knows he's doing wrong and loves it, Anna knows she's doing wrong and really isn't happy about it.
She just knows that she doesn't have
really
a choice.
Uncomfortable with it.
So I thought she was fab.
Brilliant.
Let's talk about the brilliant, masterful actor Donald Sutherland, who turns up in Fanatic.
I love Donald Sutherland. My love for Donald Sutherland knows no bounds.
Same.
But there's a big but coming up. I don't think he's terribly good here.
Why have they cast him in this role?
I know. He had so many talents, this guy. So many talents. Just amazing actor. Playing sensitively, playing people with developmental issues wasn't one of those talents.
No.
He's left with this terribly written character who just becomes a stereotype.
Yep.
Really quite a nasty stereotype in a lot of ways. It was very early in his career. I think this might have been his third film.
He looks so young.
He looks incredibly young,
Have they? Because obviously, so he plays Joseph, who is another one of the sort of, I guess...
The staff.
Yeah, the staff, exactly. Yeah. And he attends the services and does jobs around the house and things like that. But as well as being kind of having these... learning difficulties, they seem to have like made him up to almost be like an albino as well, which is an odd choice.
I mean, Donald Sutherland was a very striking looking man anyway. Quite an unusual look.
They've got a very odd wig on him and they've put some strange makeup on him as well.
It's almost like they're trying to make him out to be a monster.
Yeah, I know.
You know, like stereotypical Hammer monster. And he's like, no, this is so insensitive. He's so insensitive. They try and paint him as a good guy, but...
I mean, he absolutely is. Like, he's not a monster in any sense of the imagination, really. Like, he's not... But that's because he's not given enough smarts to kind of be in on it. He's just a bystander, really. And then is used kind of for comic relief with things like when he's reading from his Bible and Anna has to turn it the right way up for him because he's holding it upside down and things like that. There was one point where, and this isn't necessarily to do with the character or poor unfortunate Donald Sutherland's performance, but there is one of the moments in the film that really made me very tense and on the edge of my seat does revolve around Joseph, because it's when Patricia manages to write the postcard.
Yes.
She drops it out of the attic window down to Joseph, who's, I think, picking apples or something down below. And she says, Joseph, take it to the post office. And she throws some money down so he can pay for it to be sent. And he sort of, he's doing this whole thing where he sort of looks at the picture and he just sort of goes, pretty, like all of this kind of stuff. It's really cringe. But what then happens is this moment of incredible tension, because he puts it in his pocket and then Mrs. Trefoil arrives and sort of sits on the bench. Yeah. And you're thinking, and Patricia's thinking, oh shit, he's going to show it to her and Patricia's going to be found out. But he doesn't. He puts it in his pocket. And so you breathe a sigh of relief and you think, oh my God, maybe he is going to go and post it. And then at the last minute, he takes it out of his pocket again and comes over to show it to Mrs. Trefoil. And I was like, oh my God, what a roller coaster. I
know. That is a brilliantly directed scene, I have to say.
So good.
Really ratchets up the tension. And you just mentioned, I'm afraid, look, spoiler warning, I'm going to mention Doctor Who again. I'm sorry, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. You mentioned him saying pretty.
Yes.
I wonder if he kind of informed the performance of John Cain, who played the similarly afflicted Tommy in Planet of the Spiders, the last John Pertwee story. He was a guy with developmental issues who was always finding things and saying, oh, pretty. I wonder, I couldn't help last night watching it again thinking, because I'd seen Planet of the Spiders again fairly recently. I thought, I wonder if maybe, sort of John Cain or someone on the production remembered this film, which at this point would have only been 10 years old.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
So still very firmly in the memory.
Absolutely.
And so there you go. I promise there are no more mentions of the DW words for this episode. I can't guarantee next week, but there won't be any more this week.
Don't you make promises you can't
Make promises I can't keep.
We'll round up the cast just by talking briefly about Maurice Kaufman as Alan.
Yep.
So he is obviously the new fiancé, as we say, works in TV, gets a bit cross at the beginning because she wants to go off on this little sort of social mission to go and see her ex-fiancé's mum. And poor Alan is like, hold on, I thought we were going to go to the hotel and, you know what he's looking forward to.
Oh, yeah, he's ensuring that virginity doesn't come back, isn't he? That's what his plan was.
And then, thank goodness, he does buck his ideas up towards the end because he's like, all right, I know that I was a bit annoyed that she was going away. And she did say that she was only staying away one night. And we don't know by this point how long she's been away. But it's been long enough that he has gone out on a little search mission. Yeah. And I really, really love it that earlier on when you said she takes the car and he has to shout after her, it's not automatic, use the clutch. I think is it a Merc she's driving?
I think it is, isn't it? Yeah.
So he drives this convertible Mercedes. He's obviously doing very well for himself in this TV job that he's got. And then at the end, when he has to go looking for her and he's driving through the village and up to the house, he's got this beautiful little Mini, but it just made me laugh because she's taken his big car and he's almost stuck behind the wheel of this little Mini car. It just really made me laugh. I thought it was great.
He's been emasculated, hasn't he? She's taken the penis extension and he's now got this little tiny little toy car to drive around in.
It really made me laugh. I love
Very
it.
Clever.
But he does come to the rescue, thank goodness. And I think that Maurice Kaufman does a very lovely job actually of being just sort of the handsome boyfriend who comes and you know, thank God gets her out of the tower.
And we'd seen him before. Cast your mind back right to the very beginning. He played the scientist Marsh in the Quatermass experiment.
Oh my God, I knew I recognised him.
Yeah, there you go, you see. So you've seen all these people. All these people are turning up over and over and over again and will continue to do so. But
and I loved him as Marsh as well. I thought he was a really great character.
He's great, and he's really good here. He doesn't got a lot to do. It's kind of an underwritten role in a lot of ways, but he really brings something out of it. You do sort of... You like him. You do. In the small time we get to see him. We kind of like him almost instantly. You can see why Patricia fancies him. Yeah. You can see why she wants to be with him. He's got something.
Well, there's this nice sort of device that they use where right at the beginning of the film, she has to tell him that she wants to go and see Mrs. Trefoil. And she says to him, don't shout. Yeah. Because obviously, he's got a bit of a temper. You know, maybe he can get a bit bossy, a bit shouty at times. And so she has to sort of warn him, don't shout. I've got something to tell you. Don't shout. Yeah. And then it broke my heart at the end when he rescues her and he's got her in the car and he's obviously sort of holding her to keep her safe. And she says, don't shout. Yeah. Because, she thinks that she's in trouble.
That's right.
And he just says something like, I think he tells her to shut up, but he says shut up, as in, don't be so silly. Of course I'm not going to shout. You're not in trouble. And then she just sort of collapses, crumples into him. Yeah. And I think that what I like about the performance and what I like about Alan being likeable is that actually I was quite confident that after the credits roll, she's going to be all right. He's going to take care of her. So that was a relief.
And I kind of thought that maybe he'd learned a bit of a lesson.
Yes, I thought that as well.
Don't shout at Patricia. Patricia's actually tough as nails.
Absolutely right.
She survived this ordeal without you. And, sort of she can survive other things without you. So how about a little bit more sort of calming down, not shouting, a bit more respectful. Don't work all the time. Go and take her on holiday. She needs it.
Exactly.
So, that's But, again, those fan fiction writers that still haven't sent us anything,
come on,
go and write
guys.
the story. Come on, what's happening? Alan and Patricia going on a lovely holiday and him changing his ways. That'll make a nice little follow-up story.
She needs it.
Oh, God, doesn't she just? Doesn't she just? Blimey.
Okay, shall we talk about Arthus Hibbertson?
Yes, Arthur Hibbertson, and not Arthus Hibbertson,
No.
which is what you sent me in your notes. And I was thinking, who the hell's Arthus Hibbertson? I've never heard of him. I was going to get into a bit of a panic searching my website and couldn't find him. I think, what have I done? Well, I've got something wrong here, haven't I? And then realised it's Arthur Hibbertson. But yes,
Arthur Hibbertson. Now, I think we've said a couple of times that the film looks really beautiful, and it absolutely does.
It does.
That one sequence, though, where Mrs. Trefoil takes Harry down into the basement and kills him.
Yeah.
So she basically walks in on Harry, basically about to sexually assault Patricia in the attic. Mm-hmm. And it's probably the one point in the film where I was relieved to see Mrs. Trefoil.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because sort of in a slightly arse-about-face way, she's just saved Patricia from something horrendous.
Yeah. Thank God the Fanatics turned up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she takes... I think by gunpoint or anyway, somehow she gets Harry down into the basement, and this is where you first see all of that colour. And the lighting is incredible. So it almost reminded me of like Creep Show, like the 80s anthology. It's got these primary colours, these blues, greens, reds, purples. As you say, there's this sort of light hanging from the ceiling, which later gets knocked and, is sort of adding to this very sort of psychedelic, sort of disorienting feeling about things. And she kills Harry. She shoots him like 3 times. And this is the point, really, the only point in the film that we get that sort of splash of proper Eastman colour as the blood sort of comes out of his mouth. It's all very gory and brilliant. And then she is kind of mortified by what she's done, Mrs. Trefoil. And obviously, this is... Honestly, if eating meat is against what her God believes, then killing this guy definitely is.
Shooting him in the head, yes.
Yeah, and she says something like, he who spills blood must spill blood himself, or something like that.
Right, yeah.
And as she says that, she sort of she injures herself, and the whole screen goes red.
It does, yeah. Yeah, it's quite a startling effect, isn't it, that?
It's absolutely startling. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm loving everything that I'm seeing. I'm here for it. And then when I looked up Arthur Hibbertson, it turned out that he was the cinematographer on Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And I was like, that makes sense.
That makes sense now. There's a weird psychedelic, slightly tricky photography. Yeah, and he does a superb job, doesn't he? It's so good. I've seen some people try to suggest that he was inspired by Mario Bava.
Okay.
In that basement sequence because of the washes of colour.
Yeah.
The only flaw with that one is that the 2 films he'd shot in colour prior to that, Bava, were Black Sunday and Whipping the Body, and then there was a third one, Blood and Black Lace, none of which had actually opened in Britain by the time this film went into production, I don't think. Certainly Blood and Black Lace doesn't turn up till 1966 in the UK. So... He actually came up with that idea on his own. There was something in the air. This was just the psychedelic 60s that people were thinking, washes of colour. It's got to be good, hasn't it? The whole world is turning Technicolor, or in our case, Eastman colour. And it's like, it's gorgeous and it's lovely and we want more of it. And that's, it is a striking sequence down in the basement. It really is.
Oh, of course. Earlier when I said Eastman colour comes out of his mouth, what I actually meant was Kensington Gore.
Kensington Gore. Yes, Kensington Gore. And thank you. I forget who it was now. Somebody on our social media sent us a picture of them standing at the road sign for Kensington Gore, didn't they?
Oh, Peter.
Peter. Of course it was. Peter, thank you for that picture. That was terrific. That was really good.
Our poor listeners are getting so impatient with us doing our own Hammer Time tour to these places. They've started making pilgrimages
doing their own
themselves.
ones. Yeah.
Love it. Yes, such a good picture.
It. So thanks for the picture, Peter. It was lovely to actually. I've never been to Kensington Gore. I've been in London 30 years and never done it. I must go and have a look at it myself sometime. But it was lovely to see the road signs. That was great.
Right. Well, we better start wrapping things up. We've had so much to talk about with this film, and I've absolutely loved it.
We have.
I think just, what are our kind of final thoughts about the ending? Like, did you find it satisfying? Because poor old Mrs. Trefoil obviously was always going to be done in.
Oh, of course. Yes. There was no way the film could end any other way, to be honest. She had to die.
I think it's Anna that kills her, isn't it?
Yeah, with the knife that she was trying to use to murder Patricia.
Yeah.
So there's kind of an irony there. This weapon she was threatening this innocent with is the one she ends up being stabbed in the back with.
And that's an amazing moment as well, because Anna has just learned sort of throughout this whole sort of denouement in the basement that Harry is dead, because Mrs. Trefoil told Anna that he's been off in London sort of running some errands for a couple of days. But obviously what she's actually done is shot him in the head.
That's right.
And left him in the basement. And Anna learns this. And after Alan manages to get Patricia out and get her safe, we see Mrs. Trefoil obviously now like absolutely kind of raving mad, completely sort of devoid of hope or anything. And there's this enormous portrait of Stephen, her son, and she sort of advances towards that. And then I sort of thought the audience was, she's just sort of, I don't know, gonna come forward and sort of collapse into the painting. Yeah. And then as she does, that's when you see the knife in her back.
Yeah.
And I thought, again, that was a really lovely touch. Like, there's been so much overt violence in this film. And for it to not kind of signpost, or rather it only signposts and doesn't show the fact that Anna has taken her revenge and plunged this knife into the back of this woman who has kept her under her control for so many years and then just ended up killing her husband. And you only see it when she falls forward, and I really loved that.
I think it's more of a shock that it doesn't let us know that it's coming.
Exactly that.
I think it works more effectively. You kind of, because it's virtually the last shot, isn't it? It's just like, wow, so you leave the film thinking, my God, I didn't see that coming. Although you did, because you knew from the start that Mrs. Trefoil was not going to make it out alive. She couldn't do. The conventions of this kind of film demand that the villainess dies, but it's still a shock.
Well, it is, and I think I also just really liked, I didn't think it would be Anna that would kill her. I thought it would be Patricia or maybe Alan, but actually Anna kind of then having that agency at the end. I mean, I know it's quite murderous agency, but, getting her revenge on not only this woman killing her husband, because to be honest, she's better off without Harry, but
of course,
her revenge on these years of kind of,
suffering
control
and abuse
exactly. I thought it was great, and you're right, it is more shocking.
But it leaves Patricia as the innocent as well, doesn't it? That she didn't kill anybody.
Yeah, that's
although
so
she'd
true.
have been entirely justified in doing so, she doesn't.
Yeah.
So she retains her innocence. Anna has this sort of cathartic act.
Yes.
She may well end up in prison for it, but she's still free.
Yeah.
Because she's free of Harry, she's free of Mrs. Trefoil, and hopefully she will get psychiatric help and, sort of get her through this. But I'd like to think that Patricia and Alan go on holiday, they come home and they go to visit her in prison every so often.
Yeah.
Just to make sure she's okay.
Bring her a Toblerone from the airport.
Exactly. Oh, we are idiots, aren't we, really?
Let's wrap up, as we always do, by talking about some favourite moments.
Yep.
I've mentioned a couple of mine already, so it would definitely be Mrs. Trefoil going into the wardrobe,
yes,
and finding the booze and the mirror and putting the lipstick all over her face. I thought that was very cool.
Yep.
Definitely the scene in the cellar, but especially the use of that red screen at the end of Harry's murder. I just thought that was inspired. But also, I want to add Mrs. Trefoil's reaction to Alan's red Mini. So when he arrives in his little toy car that he's having to use because his girlfriend's got his Merc, he arrives in this bright red Mini. It's beautiful. I mean, it looks like it's literally just rolled off the lot.
Yes, it does, doesn't it? Yeah.
And it's so red. It's like pillar box red.
Yeah.
Mrs. Trefoil hates the colour red because it's the colour of the devil.
That's right.
She's having to play it very cool because obviously she doesn't want Alan to know that she's got his girlfriend locked in the attic, and she's trying to say, oh, you know, she was here, we had a lovely visit, but she left yesterday, blah, 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 and she sort of sees him off. And then as he gets into the car and she sort of goes to almost like sort of pat it in a kind of like have a safe trip kind of way, the way her face, like she recoils from it. I laughed out loud. I thought it was incredible. Tallulah Bankhead, chef's kiss, nailed it.
Brilliantly played, isn't it, that scene? It's one of those scenes where you do wonder, was that in the script, or did she just do that because it was right for the character?
Exactly.
You know, it's just so natural.
Good.
It's so natural. It's so good. You're right.
And how about you? Any more favourite moments?
Mine are sort of fairly general. I like the locations that they're using for this. Mm-hmm. They're not the usual Hammer locations.
No.
We get the house is in Shepperton. There's the Three Horseshoes Public House in Letchmore Heath. If you've ever seen Village of the Damned, you'll have seen that pub. It's the same pub. And there's a church in Shenley. It's just all different to the usual sort of Black Park and around Windsor sort of locations. They went slightly further afield, and I think they use the locations really well.
Same, I agree
really
with that.
Nicely. I'd have to give a shout out to absolutely any moment in which Bankhead is let off the leash and she just goes for it, and she does on a number of occasions, and she is terrific. She's just so good, so entertaining. And I think Peter Vaughan gets one of the best lines in the film. It's his delivery of it is what makes it. It's brilliant. Mrs. Trefoil has said or done something, I don't remember exactly what, but he just kind of, there's like a beat as she walked away, and he goes, "Blimey, she is balmy." And it's just beautifully done. If you can imagine that coming from Peter Vaughan, "Blimey, she is balmy."
You've also just reminded me of the bit where he's practicing shooting his gun, and he's shooting it at a tin that's got one of her photos on it.
That's right. It's a very dysfunctional household.
It really is.
Yeah.
So good. How did this one do commercially for Hammer?
It did okay.
Okay.
It wasn't outstanding. It wasn't at the sort of, level of the Gothic horrors, perhaps, but it did okay. It did well. It did well enough to want to make more of them. It was double billed over here with Stanley Kubrick's The Killers, which would have been another absolutely outstanding double bill for a Saturday night, I would have said. I'd have probably gone back to that several times, to be honest. In the States, and the version we've watched, because we watched the same version, it's 9 minutes longer than the British cut. So I think it didn't need to be 9 minutes longer, to be honest. But I think they were thinking, well, we've got Tallulah Bankhead in the film. She hasn't been on screen since 1953. We need as much as we can get. Here's another 9 minutes of her.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's fine. 9 more minutes of Mrs. Trefoil. That's okay. It might have sort of flowed a little bit better. I think the British print is a little snappier than the American print. But it did well over there as well. It did well enough for Hammer to want to make more of these kind of films.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to hear it. And how about for us? Where would you put this in our ranking? Elite, upper, middle or lower?
Oh, I'm going to say it's upper for me. It has some problems. It may be towards the lower end of upper.
Yeah.
But I still think it is, if you'll pardon the pun, a cut above most of those kind of sort of post-Lydiabolic, post-psycho psycho chillers, outside of Hammer. Hammer were the sort of the gold standard for those kind of things, but there were plenty of others being made at the time. And I think this shows them how it should be done. This shows them how to take an old-time royalty, old-time Hollywood queen and do something brilliant with her.
Yeah.
Under very difficult circumstances by the sounds of it, but they took this amazing actress who was quite a character, and they managed to bring something out of her and make an incredible film around her. So yeah, it's definitely an upper for me.
It's definitely upper for me as well. I think I agree. It's probably lower upper. It doesn't quite reach the height of some of the films that we've seen before, even some of the thrillers that we've seen before. But I just had an absolute blast with this from start to finish.
It's hugely entertaining.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all I want from a film. I want to be entertained. And even watching the longer version, when I was watching it last night, I was sort of taking notes, sort of last minute bits and pieces I was thinking of. And then I thought, hang on a minute, we're in the basement.
Yeah.
It's going to end. It's like, where the hell did that go? It's like, and then I realised that I was actually taking notes in the dark because the sun had gone in. I was so engrossed in the film, I wasn't actually paying any attention around me. So if it does that, then it's a winner. It
was just like Mrs. Trefoil's super long sermon. It had literally gotten dark around you.
Suddenly the darkness had descended upon me.
Well, I've got to say, I'd much prefer to watch Fanatic half a dozen times from light to dark, from 11 a.m. into the evening, than listen to it was the way she goes verse 1, and then she says a load of stuff, verse 2, and she gets to about verse 5, and Patricia sort of thinks like, oh, it must be done now, and then she goes verse 6, and Patricia's like, oh, for fuck's sake.
They all start exchanging glances, don't they? Particularly when we come back after it's got dark, and they're kind of just like looking at each other without trying to attract too much attention to themselves.
Oh my God.
Oh, so sort of like, I hasten to add, I wasn't watching Fanatic from 11 o'clock in the morning till it got dark. I was watching it late last night, but
I didn't imagine you'd just spent an entire day watching this on loop. But to be honest, there are worse ways to spend a Wednesday.
And there are some films I would do that, to be honest.
Thanks for listening to Hammer Time. We'll be back next week with another one-word titled Hammer thriller, Hysteria from 1965. If you're watching along with the podcast, you can pick this one up on DVD. To check out the full list of movies we'll be covering throughout this podcast, head to evolutionofhorror.com/hammer. We'd love to hear from you, so please send us questions or comments for upcoming mailbag episodes. Drop us an email to hammer@evolutionofhorror.com. You can follow the Evolution of Horror Network on Instagram at EOH_network. And we've just set up the EOH Network on BlueSky as well.
Yes.
Which I believe is Evolution of Horror, but it is the Evolution of Horror Network. You'll be getting all of the stuff from across the network if you follow us on BlueSky. You can follow me on Instagram and BlueSky at Bunny Darke, and on Letterboxd I'm Becky Darke. And Kev, where can people find you and your work?
I am the proverbial bad rash just about everywhere. I'm EOFFTV on BlueSky, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and Letterboxd. And you can find my website, the Encyclopedia of Fantastic Film and Television, at eofftv.com. But you might want to search for the EOFFTV Review, which is my reviews website, which is probably a bit more interesting than the sort of rather dry cast lists and all the rest of it on the other side. But come along, have a look.
Love it. Don't forget to rate and review us on your podcast app of choice. Thank you for listening, and join us again next week for another episode of Hammer Time.